Section 12.2, Day 1, Example 1, letter C. Again, our directions: use the properties of limits to evaluate each limit. We need to take what it is that we're looking at and use these 7 properties down at the bottom in this box to simplify the complicated limits that we have until we just have the limit of a constant or the limit of just x. Once we have that, then we can do our evaluating. So again, that's the game plan on each one of these. That's what we want to go through and do every single time. So taking a look at what we have a single limit here, and over to the right of our limit we do have something that's pretty complicated. We have something with a radical symbol. So we want to use our nth root property. If you have a radical, you have a couple ways of handling it, but what the book would suggest doing is using that bottom property. This is the only one that I haven't worked with yet in the other examples. The nth root property says if you have a square root or a cube root or a fourth root, what you can do is you can take the limit and put it inside the radical. That's what that looks like. So again, here's the nth root property. If you have a limit with a square root or a cube root or a fourth root, you can go through and just basically take the limit and put it inside the radical. I'm not going to give you any problems where this last part is not true, so you don't have to worry about this last piece. We're really just taking a look at rewriting this square root using our limits. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take our limit, which was originally here on the outside of our radical, and I'm going to put it on the inside based on what this property is saying. So we're going to have a large square root, and inside now I'm going to have the limit. So limit as x approaches 1 of x plus 8. So that's using the nth root property to do that step. And now I want to take a look at the limit and see if we just have x or a constant, and I don't. I have 2 things being added together. So I'm going to need to go through and I'm going to need to use the sum property to break these 2 into 2 separate limits. So this would be equal to the square root of, and I'm going to do the limit as x approaches 1 of x plus the limit again of 8. So it'll be the limit as x approaches 1 of x plus the limit as x approaches 1 of 8. We need to keep evaluating this and breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces until we have limits with just x or just a constant, and that's all we have left. So I'm ready to do my I'm ready to do my substitution in and evaluating and come up with our final answer. This first limit, we have the limit as x approaches 1 of x. When you have an x, we're going to take that 1, plug it in. That's just going to become the number 1. The second limit, I would like to take this 1 and plug it in for all the variables, but there aren't any, so that just ends up remaining as 8. So we end up with the square root of 1 plus 8, which is the square root of 9, or 3. So our final answer for that one is just 3. Again, as you go through and do these, and you use these properties, we are evaluating and coming up with the absolute exact answer. These aren't estimates. In section 12.1, we did a lot of work with tables. We had to plug numbers into the calculator. It was a lot of work, and we were just coming up with estimates. We weren't coming up with exact answers. These properties are not super fun to use either. They're kind of long to keep breaking these apart, but it's usually a little less work than having to come up with that big table. And instead of estimates, we are coming up with the exact answer. So that's our focus of section 12.2, day number 1.